Hello, everyone. So our next speakers are Luke Flegg and Charlie Shred. They're starting as a documentary project called. They started as a documentary project called Schools of Thought, and have since carefully designed a plan for probably the first viable internet-ocracy. They've spent years working steadily towards where they are today, with a big dream to change the future of education, but also to set a precedent of how to change the way we change things in society. Please welcome Luke Flegg and Charlie Shred.
Hello. So, education shapes our society, but who shapes our education? Because it's certainly not us.
We started off as filmmakers, I suppose, and we're from artsy backgrounds, so we're not really sort of deep academics or particularly advanced specialists in anything, but what we realised was that there are a lot of problems in our society, particularly with education. And in the newspapers and around us, you can constantly see these issues arising everywhere, like kids being disenfranchised by their school system, high numbers of truancy. And I think these are obviously all symptoms to a larger problem. And what we're interested in is finding the root causes of the problem. Obviously, there's the economic issues that surround the whole lot, but at the heart of it, there is the behavioural and educational issues. And that's what we want to solve.
Cool. So I feel like I just wanted to talk a little bit about what I think happens when human beings feel like they don't have opportunities, when they can't see opportunities. You know, they don't have a goal that they're kind of going towards, a role model or sort of, you know, prospects. And on top of that, if people feel like maybe they know that there is, you know, people are happy around them, they have good jobs or whatever they perceive to be sort of successful, happy people and opportunities, maybe they do believe that they exist, but they don't feel like they can ever reach it. For whatever reason, maybe their background or their class that they were born into or their circumstances for whatever reason. And I think what you end up from that is people who don't feel listened to by their society, they don't feel valued by their society. And so in turn, they don't value their society. They don't value theirs.
Just to add to that, there's kind of not any easy communication channels, I suppose, to allow people to understand what the possibilities are and how they can work together to achieve these possibilities. So you get things like the riots and people kicking off and all of these sort of explosive symptoms of discommunication or people not being able to understand how to work together in intelligent ways.
Yeah,
I suppose that leads to just the general state of the education system now. So you have like this, it might seem like a joke, but that's what most of us went through. It's literally like a factory where people just sort of sit down, answer check boxes. That's what education means to most people. I mean, the word education has been bastardized, I would say, from something that should mean curiosity and learning and understanding how to navigate in this world. But now to most people, it means copying off a board and writing down an answer from a checklist, which is absurd.
So I think... I just want to quickly reiterate that this project is in development at the moment, so we're prototyping this web platform, something we've been working on for a little while. We're going to go into more detail about the journey of that in a bit, but I wanted to talk a bit about, you know, a lot of people in society are kind of labelled the problem or a problem in society, and I want this project to kind of represent a change in mentality of seeing people who some of us think are problems as like actually one of our best resources for solving problems, because a lot of those people, depending on who exactly we're talking about here, are, you know, closest to those problems. So people You know, if you've got kids in a school who are really aggressive and maybe really bored in a lesson, you know, if you're a teacher and some of the kids are yawning at the back of the room, you know, they're the ones that I think have the most to teach you as a teacher about how you can better engage your students, for example.
Yeah, I guess this just leads to our general progression of where we've come from in our understanding. So it started off a few years ago, just a bunch of us, young people wanting to find out if there are any alternatives to education. So we started making a little documentary in our year out of university. And we sort of discovered that there are really amazing ideas out there. There's people doing brilliant things, inspiring young people. But then on the other hand, there are people that are really causing a lot of disenfranchisation and people falling through the gaps. So what we wanted to do was sort of just compare some of these alternative ideas with what the mainstream are doing. But gradually, over time, we realized we wanted to do more than just raise awareness of what's out there. I'd like to read this. It's kind of like the Buckminster Fuller quote, but a bit sweeter, I think.
So just two things that I found on that journey doing that documentary. I mean, I'd already worked in film a little bit, doing some documentaries around Europe for the student unions and other bits of interesting things which have kind of inspired me to get to where I am today with this. But yeah, I've just felt overwhelmingly like, I don't think it's just us that feel like education is broken. I feel like there's a lot of students who feel that, you know, their education could have prepared them a lot better for the lives that they wanted to lead. I feel like a lot of teachers, you know, friends of a lot of ours, you know, tell me if I'm wrong, feel frustrated with, you know, large aspects of how they teach. You know, they feel their wings are clipped in terms of their creative license as a teacher, you know, drowned in bureaucracy a lot of the time. And also workplaces, you know, we spoke to a Dragon's Den person and some other people kind of representing the workplace outside of school, the real world. And I felt that a lot of them, you know, also just felt like this assessment system's ridiculous. I can't tell the difference between any of these people coming out of our education system. You know, we need a better way of kind of working out what are the real useful qualities in people, let alone like helping foster those when they're in education.
I guess we realise that there's a lot of social problems and there's a lot of potential with the internet. I think if there's something that the recent uprising in our world has taught, it's not that things like Twitter and Facebook caused revolutions. It's this massive social pressure that wants to change. And things like Twitter and Facebook provided a small channel to help that change happen more efficiently. And they weren't even designed to make that happen. All they were designed to do was just make a conduit for communication in the most simple form. But what we need is to harness our intelligence collectively, like a big brain. And that's what the internet can do. If we just figure out how to organize information and organize our communication to create more intelligent ways of communicating, we might be able to end up in a place a bit like this, where it's sustainable and our behavior that is fostered via these networks enhances things like collaboration, empathy, understanding how different things work, tapping into our collective intelligence. Go on.
At this stage, I'm going to just jump in with a little bit of realism about the actual process of doing this and how 99% of our time is like spent endlessly thinking about the nuts and bolts of voting algorithms and like ways that you can actually like make sure repetition doesn't happen, and there's like user moderation and all the actual real ways that you would get people together in a group through a website to be cleverer and make decisions better together that everyone wants. But there's a lot of inspiring things out there to learn from. Some of you may know some of these. At the moment, I think Jolitics is quite an interesting, certainly some room for improvement. Michael Birch, who was co-founder of Bebo, did this one, putting jolliness into politics. But yeah, so it's, I don't know, that's a bit of a kind of early stage idea, but check that out if you're interested in this sort of thing. an internetocracy, but this is Jolitics, actually. Yeah, so you have a proposal, and then, do we go deeper into the rabbit hole? No, I've fast-forwarded too much.
So yeah, some of those other ideas were just sort of those projects. I mean, they were just little teasers as to what's possible. So Jolitics is a simple form of just proposing an idea of how you might change a policy in your country, and then people sort of rate points for and against. Internetocracy is a whole theory derived around sort of liquid democracy, which is rather interesting, worth reading. Yeah, so what we're trying to do is create something called Change the Future at the moment, and it's obviously still in early stages, and we're probably really naive and a bit silly, so we're welcome to criticism at any point and try and make it for the people, because that's what it's for. So we've sort of come up with 5 features that address some key problems. Obviously, further down the line, we might realise that they could be tweaked or completely scrapped or something different. But at the moment, as it stands, the first main feature is called Open Your Mind. And the point of this is to address the problem that people don't know what's already out there enough to understand what the possibilities could be. And there's not enough inspiration to help people come up with good quality ideas. So, Open Your Mind is kind of a bit like this website that currently exists.
It's called Imagination for People. It's really cool. Check it out.
Yes. So you just sort of post up ideas of inspiring ways of doing education, for example. Or maybe there's a piece of research that talks about how children learn or how the brain develops. Or maybe there's a video about a really quirky youth club that teaches kids how to do backflips on gym balls or something like that.
And then Change Things, which is kind of the heart of the project. So I've got the good one. So this is where people actually change things. Hopefully, the idea of Open Your Mind is that before you immediately sort of try and change things, you should learn a little bit what you're talking about first. And so we're kind of encouraging users into the web platform through that first feature, though we can't force them not to come straight here. But it's kind of gamified. We can talk more about that later. But so essentially, this is a proposals engine. So you can propose a change. I want to talk a little bit about, this is a bit of a controversial slide. I think ours is great, but I feel like they have been, like the e-petitioning kind of era is something that I see kind of like becoming obsolete, because I feel like it's, what excites me is when people who disagree get into the same space and they talk about why they disagree. And then eventually, hopefully, we can find something, even if it's a compromise, that everyone is happy to do together. And at this point, I'm going to just really quickly talk about definitely the reason why I'm here more than anything else is because I just did rubbish in school. Like, every word to do with education just made me an unhappy person. And yeah, so after kind of getting kicked out of a couple of schools, I went to a pupil referral unit in Oxford, which most of you will probably know what that means, but if you're unsure, it's basically prison, but a school. So that happened, and then just very, very luckily, how did these things happen? My mum just found a book about democratic education and was like, right, we're going to Devon. And I went to a school where a child will chair the meeting where all the staff and all the students get together once a week, and everyone has one vote on every single topic in the entire school. There is no other decision-making process or head teacher. No uniforms, first name basis, blah, blah, blah. But so in this meeting, usually about 2.5 hours, everyone who has a problem, anyone who's pissed off with students coming in halfway through lessons or mess somewhere or something's broken, or a lot of the time, fortunately, it was also people saying how cool something was or a good idea they had. Sometimes it was where they wanted to go for school camp. But the point is, I mean, there's a couple of things. One is that just being in that space, I'm looking back on it now, I realised that I didn't even have to put my hand up and propose something to feel part of it. Just being in the corner and just like maybe doing some doodles or just being there, I was active in a way, because I knew at any point I could put my hand up and be listened to, and that is it was such a powerful effect on me. And And yeah, so like it's just funny that us like taxpayers were, or not, were paying like 27 grand or more like a year for me to go to a pupil referral unit, and Sands is like 9 grand a year, and tried to be shut down several times by Ofsted for being a little bit too strange, full of hippies. And that's definitely what helped me, and has actually really enthused me about education and how best to engage people. So this is a little bit like a school meeting at my democratic school, but for everyone. And I felt like I just learned a lot about how different people coming together can come up with answers better.
Yeah. What's next?
Yeah, I just feel like, regarding e-petitions, I just feel that that's a little bit like, guys, this is what we need to do now, and I'm only interested in people who exactly agree with me. Let's go into this room and just get away from everyone else. You know, I feel like that's a little bit like what e-petitions do, and what if someone had an idea for how to kind of tweak an idea a little bit and improve it, or, you know, I think it's really important to actually create a space where people who disagree feel welcome to come in and contribute to their ideas, because we need to convince them as well, you know. So I want to move away from the us and them thing, and it kind of comes back to, yeah, truancy or problem people and involving them in the solution. I just feel like, you know, we all are going to benefit from working together on a solution that affects all of us.
So we need to create a system that involves people and makes them active participants in shaping their environment.
For me, having gone to a democratic school made me realise how not democratic my society was. Like, I get to basically go to a school meeting once every 4 years and either pick a punch in the face or a kick in the balls. And I'm like, what? How is this a democracy? Anyway, so I feel like if we want to prepare people for a society where we work together as a group and is democratic, then, you know, involve me and I will understand. And I want Change the Future to be one of the ways that we can give what I was lucky enough to have to everybody, at least a little bit. It's not exactly the same being online, but... so this is a simplified version of one of our proposals. There's your proposal. So you, should we do a little run through of it? I think it could be quite fun. Yeah. Okay. This might go horribly wrong, but who has got an idea for something you would change in education? It could either be in your school or educational institution, or it could be in national education policy. Go on. Yeah.
The curriculum.
So you might say the curriculum, give a more specific change.
Can anyone else make a bit more of add to that idea, working with that, make it a bit more specific?
Class sizes. Yeah.
Okay, smaller class sizes. Okay, well, let's run with that for a second. So that would go on here as your title, and then it would be encouraged that you would, in order to get to the milestone stage, you would have to get quite specific with what exactly you mean. And then, has anyone else got any arguments for that, to support that proposal?
So the proposal that is to make class sizes smaller.
Yes. Who thinks that could be a good idea? Like that could help. Okay. So, yeah, you then, the white and multicoloured hoodie. Yeah. Why would that maybe be a good idea to have smaller classes?
Because you've got more time to give more focus to less people. I've done a lot of music workshops with kids, teaching them how to rap, and I'm dealing with 30. It's a lot different than if I'm dealing with 4. I think people
Yeah. Sweet. Okay. Right. Exactly. So you would pop on here. You would add an argument for. Perhaps you would give a case study. So you or anyone else at any time can add a case study onto here and scienceify it a little bit, so it's not just opinions that are flying around. And then, yeah, if anyone has a sort of argument against or a sort of... Pardon?
To eliminate the classes, because they are not necessary. For example, in Sweden.
Right. I think that would come as a comment, and then what you get is a spin-off. And now we're getting too much into details, but it's really exciting when you look at how exactly, like, you create a website with the actual buttons to do this really human, natural process of coming up with ideas and changing things without being an obstacle, but leading you in a constructive direction towards an end goal eventually. Otherwise, you're just talking ideas.
So I guess what we want to do is try and organise information in such a way that you can draw real meaning from it. So like a regular forum is just sort of splurges of comments, and then you can't really draw a lot of usefulness from it. Go on.
I was was always baffled by the idea of a teacher planning a lesson for the kids. The kids are the ones that are learning, and the students are the ones that are, it's their education, and it's not the teacher's education, and it needs to be turned around and focused on the students more, and they need to have a lot more, more say in what they're doing. And
So
obviously there's a limit to what each teacher can teach, because I mean, if you don't have the knowledge, you can't teach it. But
The thing is, I think people are in different places in terms of like what they can bring to the table. You know, like I could go up to some students I know and they would just be like, yeah, I've got a wicked idea, I've got a whole lesson plan together. They could be like 11 years old and they're just like, yeah, exactly. So I've broken people up into groups and we're going to have these.
yeah, but it's not only that. I mean, you can get to know someone, and if they don't know exactly what they want to do, you can get to know them and figure out what will work best.
Yeah, right, exactly. But like, the point I was making is that I think some children and people generally aren't, you know, it's like a muscle, it's like a skill, like knowing what you want, or like you might think you want something, but I think there is apathy, and there is a lot of people who don't know what is best for them as well as some other people do, I think. And so what do we do how do we develop those skills of kind of knowing what's best for us and coming up with ideas? So that's partly the point of Open Your Mind, is to kind of help us see how different education can be, just to kind of provoke us and be like, wow, it never even occurred to me that education could be that way. It's to kind of address the problem of you can't imagine what you've never seen, because schools at the moment, in fact all kinds of education institutions, operate as little bubbles, where some of them think they're being really pioneering and actually they're just reinventing the wheel and copying something another school's doing without even realising. Like the school I met Charlie in did this thing, they sold DVD box sets on how awesome their teaching was, and I was there like, man, this is not pioneering. Like, some of the teachers were cool, but like, I don't know, I want schools to be able to learn from each other's mistakes and each other's successes by, you know, being part of an interconnected network, you know. And so yeah, when you add a proposal, you can propose a national policy change or a change in your education institution, in which case you can choose whether or not it's private or you feel like it could be relevant to other places. You know, they could potentially learn from your proposal. So what you end up with is, here's a proposal, 74 schools have done this, almost all of them thought it was great.
So we've had Open Your Mind, which shares ideas. We've had Change Things, which hopefully provides a platform for people to come up with ideas and then turn them into actions. And then you have school reviews. So at the moment you've got Ofsted report, so we need to hurry up. So this is basically supplementing Ofsted reports, which mean giving people a voice to say what their school experience was like. Is it on? So there's stuff out there's like SchoolsNet, which is a really simplified version of what we're trying to do. So there's already things out there, but it's about creating a synergy between these different elements into one holistic platform. And then Talk is hopefully going to be connecting the general public and users with important people, so like the presidents, and prime ministers and MPs. So that's sort of addressing the top-down approach. So we've got the grassroots approach of everyone, and then this will be getting the communication between the top people and the people.
It's sort of primarily about trying to close the gap between people shaping education and people in education, policy makers and people involved.
Yeah. That's Barack Obama.
Okay, so then...
And then the Oracle is really exciting. It's the sum of all the parts. This is where science prevails, because it takes all of this useful data that we're gathering, takes some of the information from third-party sources and actually proves where the trends are happening, like what's happening in certain schools over time. Did this idea actually work? Does truancy have a correlation with happiness and student engagement? And all these other really useful pieces of information we can put back into the wheel of understanding and coming up with better ideas and working together. So there's already things out there that should give us a bit of inspiration, like Gapminder and Roadmap.
No!
Next.
Oh, we have a blank slide.
Oh yeah,
Someone's put together.
this is where we are now. And what we want is lots of people to help us. and we're basically in the stage of just starting to build a prototype. We've currently got a big hairy man in my bedroom that's just starting to put some code together, and we need some feedback on how to make it better. Hopefully we'll roll this out into a few schools and communities and test this as a prototype and see whether it works, and try and adapt it and tweak it and make it the best catalyst for change we can. So yeah, help us join us.
Don't let this be our project. Thanks.